Ladies and gentlemen, you know, sometimes we ignore what God is screaming at us just because we're scared to lose someone who already doesn't value us. But let me tell you something. God didn't create you to be less than. He didn't breathe life into you so you could live begging for the crumbs of someone else's affection. When a man doesn't respect you, that's not love. That's not partnership. That's prison. Now, I know you saw the red flags. I know your spirit felt it. That tension in your chest, that ache in your gut, that's not love, baby. That's God whispering. God's signs are not subtle. He sends storms to clear your path, not to destroy you. And if that man can't see the queen you are, then he is not your king. Respect is the bare minimum. If someone can't give you that, they don't deserve access to you. Period. You think staying makes you strong? No. Walking away, now that takes courage. That takes faith. And that is obedience, because God's love will never ask you to suffer in silence. You got to stop waiting for him to change and start listening to the one who never does. Don't confuse attachment with purpose. Don't confuse history with destiny. You're not called to endure someone who's blind to your value. You're called to rise, to heal, to thrive. Let that man go. Let God take over. And I promise you, when you stop chasing what disrespects you, you'll start attracting what's meant to protect you. You're not hard to love. You've just been loving someone who doesn't know how to handle something holy. So hear me loud. Not signs say stop. Now it's your move. Let me know if you want a more fiery, softer, or spiritual version. I got you. Divine discernment is that quiet knowing deep in your spirit. The voice you try to ignore when your heart wants something your soul knows isn't right. It's not always loud, not always dramatic, but it's consistent. It's the unease you feel when you're smiling through tears, pretending everything's fine while your soul is begging for rest. It's that tug you feel when you make excuses for someone's disrespect, brushing it off as just how he is. But God is not the author of confusion. He doesn't send you into relationships to lose yourself, to question your worth, or to accept less than what he designed for you. When you have divine discernment, it's not just about seeing the truth. It's about choosing it. It's about hearing God's whisper and honoring it over the noise of your emotions. Sometimes we pray for a sign, and God gives it. Then he gives it again. Then again. But we delay. We hold on because we believe we can fix it, mold it, pray the pain away. And in doing that, we end up worshiping potential instead of honoring our purpose. God's signs aren't punishments. They are protection. Discernment is a gift, but it requires boldness. It requires trust. It requires the courage to walk away from what's familiar, even if it hurts. Because staying in something God is trying to pull you out of will only break you further. Your spirit knows when you're not being honored. Your soul knows when you're dimming your light, just to fit into a space God never intended for you. The sermon says enough. It says, wake up. It says, trust me more than you trust what you think you need. Because God never removes something without the intent to replace it with something better, something holy, something whole. Self-worth is not determined by how much attention he gives you, how often he texts you back, or whether he chooses you in a crowd. Self-worth is sacred because it was woven into your identity by God himself. You were crafted with intention, designed with love, and filled with divine purpose long before anyone ever had an opinion about you. When a man disrespects you, when he talks down to you, disregards your feelings, or constantly makes you feel like you're not enough, that doesn't say anything about your worth. It says everything about his lack of character. You don't need to earn someone's respect by overextending yourself, fixing what's broken in them, or shrinking just to fit inside their small vision of love. When you start bending over backward just to keep someone around, you begin handing them something that's not theirs to control. Your value. And the moment you do that, you step out of alignment with the truth of who you are. God didn't create you to be someone's emotional punching bag or a placeholder until they figure themselves out. He created you to stand tall, to be loved fully, and to walk in dignity. The way you let someone treat you speaks volumes to the way you see yourself. If you tolerate disrespect, if you explain away bad behavior, if you convince yourself it's not that bad, you start settling in the dust when you were meant to live in the light. The more you honor your own worth, the less tolerance you'll have for situations that ask you to forget it. Loving yourself isn't pride, it's obedience. It's understanding that if God calls you worthy, no one else has the right to call you less. Respect is not something that should be earned in a relationship. It should be the foundation. If someone claims to love you but consistently talks down to you, ignores your boundaries, or makes you feel small, that's not love. That's control wrapped in false affection. You see, real love never asks you to endure pain as proof of loyalty. Real love doesn't humiliate you in private or in public. And when respect is absent, everything else falls apart. No matter how much history, chemistry, or shared memories exist. Too often, people confuse passion with love and chaos with depth. They think that surviving disrespect is strength. But there is no strength in tolerating emotional starvation. There is no honor in staying somewhere you are consistently belittled. Respect is not a reward you receive after pleasing someone enough. It's the basic language of any relationship rooted in truth and love. When you have to question your value in someone's life, when you feel like you're constantly auditioning for a role in their story, that's a clear sign the respect is missing. And once respect is gone, so is the space for safe, genuine connection. Disrespect teaches you to doubt yourself. It makes you second-guess your instincts, compromise your standards, and normalize treatment that you would have once found unacceptable. But you cannot build something sacred on a foundation of disregard. You cannot force someone to honor what they don't value. The moment you accept less than respect, you open the door to pain disguised as patience. Respect doesn't just show up in words. It shows up in how someone listens, how they prioritize you, how they protect your heart. You don't have to prove your worth to someone who sees you clearly. And if they don't, you don't have to stay. Your peace is not a luxury, it's a necessity. It's not selfish to protect it, and it's not dramatic to walk away from anything that disturbs it. When you find yourself constantly anxious, walking on eggshells, wondering what version of someone you're going to get today, that's not love. That's emotional instability, and your spirit wasn't made to live in chaos. God doesn't send confusion, He brings clarity. He doesn't plant you in places that tear you apart from the inside out. Peace is a sign that you are in alignment with God's will, and anything that threatens it is worth examining. When someone robs you of your peace, they're stealing time, joy, and energy from you. And no matter how much you love them, no matter how many times you convince yourself things will change, peace doesn't grow in a war zone. Love is not meant to feel like survival. You shouldn't have to fight every day just to feel heard or seen. When you lose your peace, you lose yourself. You start forgetting what happiness feels like, what freedom feels like, what it means to just be, without the constant fear of being too much or not enough. You were never called to live in emotional turbulence for the sake of loyalty. God calls you into rest, into joy, into stillness of the heart. That doesn't mean life won't have storms. But when peace is a priority, you learn to step away from the things that create unnecessary ones. It takes courage to walk away from what's familiar, but if that familiarity is stealing your peace, it's not home, it's a cage. Protecting your peace is not a betrayal of love, it's a declaration of worth. Because when your heart is at peace, you can finally hear God clearly. Don't idolize broken people just because you see their potential. Potential is not a promise, and love cannot survive on hope alone. When someone consistently shows you they cannot love you well, cannot lead with integrity, cannot treat you with respect, you have to believe them the first time. Too often, we fall in love with who someone could be instead of acknowledging who they truly are in front of us. And when you idolize a broken person, you start diminishing yourself to accommodate their wounds, confusing sacrifice with salvation. You are not their savior. That role is already taken. And the moment you step into it, you step out of alignment with God. You start placing their healing above your own peace, their growth above your own sanity, their brokenness above your boundary. It's not your job to fix someone who doesn't even recognize they're broken. It's not your role to keep pouring love into someone who pokes holes in the very cup you're trying to fill them with. Idolizing someone doesn't mean you worship them on purpose. It happens subtly. When you silence your voice so they feel heard. When you set your needs aside so they don't feel inadequate. When you romanticize the struggle as though suffering is proof of loyalty. But loving someone should never require you to betray yourself. It should never ask you to abandon what you know is right just to keep someone who isn't ready to be kept. God never asked you to idolize anyone but Him. When you put a broken person on a pedestal, you set yourself up for disappointment, heartbreak, and spiritual confusion. Love people, yes. Pray for them, of course. But don't lose yourself trying to play a role that only grace, growth, and God can fill. Metastrons are proof. They are the clearest evidence of someone's character, intentions, and capacity for love. Words can lie. Apologies can be rehearsed. Excuses can be dressed up in charm and tears. But patterns don't lie. They show you who a person truly is, not just who they pretend to be in moments of guilt or panic. When someone repeatedly disrespects you, makes promises they don't keep, shows up only when it's convenient, or switches their energy depending on their mood, that's not confusion. That's consistency, and consistency is the truth. We often want to believe that things will get better, that one more chance will make the difference, that this time will finally be the time they change. But when the pattern has already been established, the outcome has already been predicted. You can't heal a relationship by ignoring what it keeps repeating. You can't build trust on the same cycle that keeps breaking it. If someone's behavior is hurting you more than it's helping you, if their presence brings more pain than peace, you have to stop holding on to the fantasy and start honoring the facts. It's not about being unforgiving. It's about being wise. When God shows you the pattern, He's not being cruel. He's being clear. And when you keep dismissing it in the name of loyalty, you're not being faithful. You're being drained. Love does not live in cycles of apology. without action. Change without consistency is manipulation in disguise. If someone's actions continue to contradict their words, it's the actions you need to trust. Because when people show you the same version of themselves again and again, they're not hiding anymore. They're revealing. And it's up to you to believe what you see, not just what you want to feel. Stop justifying disrespect just because you care about someone. Love should never make you blind to how you're being treated. The more you make excuses for the way someone hurts you, the deeper you fall into a cycle that convinces you it's normal. But pain is not proof of love. Silence is not strength. And tolerating disrespect is not loyalty, it's self-neglect. Every time you say, "He didn't mean it, he was just upset," or "It's my fault for pushing him," you're not protecting the relationship. You're abandoning yourself. Disrespect doesn't always come as yelling or insults. Sometimes it comes in the form of being dismissed, ignored, or consistently made to feel like your voice doesn't matter. It shows up in the subtle ways. He makes you question your own memory, downplays your emotions, or blames you for his own behavior. But no matter how it's dressed up, disrespect is still disrespect. And every time you let it slide, you teach him how to treat you. You teach him that your boundaries can be bent, your voice can be silenced, and your worth is negotiable. God didn't create you to beg for love, to accept crumbs of kindness in exchange for your soul. His love is whole, constant, and respectful, and anything less is not from him. You're not called to save someone by sacrificing your dignity. You're not required to endure pain so that someone else can grow at your expense. Disrespect is not a phase, it's a pattern. And the longer you justify it, the more it becomes your normal. But your spirit knows better. You feel the heaviness for a reason. You know something's off. And deep down, you know that love should never come at the cost of your peace, your worth, or your voice. Spiritual maturity isn't just about how much you pray, how often you go to church, or how many scriptures you can quote. It's also about knowing when to say no, when to walk away, and when to protect your peace with boundaries. It's about recognizing that being kind doesn't mean being a doormat, and being patient doesn't mean tolerating disrespect. Boundaries are not a lack of love. They are a deep expression of self-respect and spiritual awareness. They say, "I love you, but I won't lose myself to keep you close." They say, "I forgive you, but I will not make room for repeated harm." God never asked you to stay in environments that chip away at your soul. He didn't call you to relationships that confuse you more than they comfort you. Spiritual maturity means having the wisdom to discern what's helping your growth and what's stunting it. It's realizing that some connections are assignments for a season, not promises for a lifetime. And when someone constantly oversteps your boundaries, when they ignore your needs and expect your grace without accountability, it's not unholy to walk away. It's divine wisdom in action. Jesus had boundaries. He walked away from crowds. He rested. He didn't chase after everyone who rejected him. He loved fully, but he didn't allow himself to be mistreated or manipulated. That's not pride, it's clarity. And clarity is a gift from God. You can love someone and still say, "This isn't healthy for me." You can wish the best for someone and still choose to step away. Setting boundaries doesn't make you weak in faith. It shows you've grown strong enough to protect what God is doing in you. Because what he's building in your spirit is too sacred to be constantly wounded by what you refuse to confront. Healing requires distance. When you've been hurt, when you've been emotionally drained, or when your peace has been constantly disturbed, sometimes the only way to heal is to step back. Distance doesn't mean bitterness. It doesn't mean you've given up. It simply means that you've recognized the need for space in order to restore what's been broken. God doesn't heal you by keeping you in the middle of the storm. He heals you when you take a step away from the chaos and sit in His presence, where peace can reign. We often tell ourselves that healing happens in proximity. If we stay close enough, we can fix things. But sometimes staying close keeps you trapped in the same cycles, the same toxic patterns that caused the wounds in the first place. The constant proximity to pain makes it harder to see clearly, harder to hear God's voice above the noise. Distance gives you the room to breathe, to reflect, and to realign with the truth of who you are. It's in the quiet moments, when you're no longer fighting to hold things together, that God's healing power can move in. Walking away doesn't mean you're abandoning someone. It means you're choosing to prioritize your own emotional and spiritual well-being. You can't pour from an empty cup, and sometimes you need distance to refill that cup with God's love, clarity, and strength. Distance is a form of self-care. It's a recognition that you are worthy of time to heal, and you don't have to stay in the midst of chaos to prove your love or loyalty. Healing requires distance, because distance allows you to come back whole. It allows you to reclaim your peace, your worth, and your clarity. And when the time is right, you'll return stronger, wiser, and with a deeper understanding of the love that you deserve. You deserve divine love, the kind of love that is unconditional, constant, and healing. It's the love that doesn't ask you to earn it through perfection, nor does it disappear when you fall short. Divine love sees you at your highest and lowest points, and it loves you just the same. It doesn't come with strings attached, with hidden motives or expectations. It doesn't use your vulnerability against you or make you feel small in the process. The divine love you deserve is rooted in acceptance, peace, and grace. It knows your worth before you ever had a chance to prove it. Too often we settle for love that is conditional, love that thrives on approval, validation, and sacrifice. But that isn't love. That's a transaction. Divine love doesn't require you to change who you are to fit someone else's needs. It celebrates your individuality and honors your essence. It doesn't demand that you shrink to make someone else feel comfortable. It encourages you to expand, to grow, to rise. This love pushes you toward your highest potential, not the version of yourself that someone else can control. You are worthy of a love that affirms your worth, that sees you as whole even in your brokenness, and that draws you closer to your purpose instead of holding you back. God's love doesn't come with limitations. It's never fleeting, never dependent on your performance. It is the kind of love that makes you feel seen, heard, and valued, regardless of your past mistakes or flaws. You were made for more than just surviving relationships. You were made to thrive in love, authentic, fulfilling, and divine. And when you begin to believe that you deserve that kind of love, you'll stop accepting anything less. Divine love is yours, and you are worthy of it. In conclusion, the message is clear. You are worthy of love that uplifts, nurtures, and respects you in every season of your life. God's signs are not there to confuse you, but to guide you toward the peace, joy, and love that you deserve. Stop pleasing those who fail to honor you and start prioritizing your own worth. Recognize that respect is non-negotiable and that your peace, boundaries, and healing are sacred. No one has the right to diminish you, and you don't need to justify disrespect or hold on to brokenness for the sake of love. Spiritual maturity calls for the wisdom to walk away from what harms you, to create the space needed for healing, and to embrace the divine love that God has already promised you. Remember, you were made for love that builds you up, that encourages you to grow, and that aligns with your divine purpose. When you begin to see your worth through God's eyes, you will no longer settle for anything less than the love you were always meant to experience.